Hey everybody, welcome to another Crack-A-Pack Tuesday on the Mana League. I'm John as always, and it's time for some more Dragons of Nope. It's time for some Modern Masters 2015. It came out today as of this recording, and I've got some packs for a couple weeks of Modern Masters Crack-A-Packs. This is the fancy new booster pack form. It's a piece of cardboard, which I really like the look of, I like the feel of. Public service announcement, I've seen some videos showing that these are completely 100% not tamper-proof. You can slip a knife underneath this little edge here, pull out this tab, take the cards out, take the good ones out, put crappy ones in with a dab of glue, and nobody will be none the wiser. So do not buy these packs from eBay, Loose, or any unreputable source like that. Buy them from your local game store, buy them from eBay or an online site where the booster box is sealed with the original Wizards of the Coast wrapper. Otherwise, I love these packs. I love the feel of them. They've got a zip tie here. It definitely changes the way you crack a pack, but we can still crack this pack. So let's unzip it, open it up from the side, and pull these cards out. So every pack has a tip card that sometimes is a token. We got ourselves a wolf. But let's go through these and see what we would take. Pack one, pick one. Well, that's fate. We've got ourselves a Mana Leak on the Mana Leak. Mana Leak, of course, is a 1 blue instant counter spell that counters target spell unless your opponent pays 3, which, especially in the early game, basically just says counter target spell. The quality of the spell falls off definitely in the late game where paying 3 mana isn't really a big deal. But early game, this card's fantastic. It's one of my favorite counter spells. It's why I named the channel The Mana Leak. Plus, it's just a really good pun. Not generally first pickable, but a good card nonetheless. Next up, we have Nameless Inversion. This is a tribal instant shapeshifter for 1 and a black. It has Changeling, which means that it is all creature types at the same time. Despite the fact that this isn't a creature, it's an instant. Tribal instant's kind of a weird thing. But it says target creature gets +3/-3 and loses all creature types until end of turn. So this is a removal spell, basically giving whatever you want -3 until end of turn. It could be a pump spell that wins you the game if you throw it on, a 6/6 and make it into a 9/3. The anti-changeling effect basically doesn't have too much of an issue with it. There's certainly some tribal things that you could mess up with that, but otherwise not all that awesome. You're using this as a whatever -3 spell, and as that it's totally okay, I think. Next up we have Death Denied. This is an X black instant arcane, and it says return X target creature cards from your graveyard to your hand. So a nice little bit of graveyard recursion here. I don't know if there's a graveyard deck in this format exactly, a super recursion deck. I haven't actually drafted this format yet, truth be told. So I'm going into this a little bit blind, which is really nice because you get to sort of test your pure card evaluation skills. And my pure card evaluation skills tell me this is just not that awesome of a card. It has its purposes, but kind of like Grave Purge from Dragons and Avacyn Restored earlier, it's just okay. It's just okay. It'll maybe make it into a black deck, but otherwise I'm not a huge fan. Next up we have Wings of Velisvel? Wings of something. It's a tribal instant shapeshifter as well. It's the same thing as Nameless Inversion. For 1 and a blue, it has Changeling, so it's all creature types. And it says, until end of turn, target creature has base power and toughness 4/4, gains all creature types, and gains flying. So this is sort of like Dance of the Skywise. Dance of the Skywise sounds right. From Dragons, where it becomes a 4/4 flying dragon. In this case, it becomes a 4/4 flying dragon, and goat, and wolf, and thrall, and plant, and everything. Obviously, it can have some cool synergies with tribal stuff, but ultimately, you're using this just to make a creature into a 4/4. Sometimes, this could, be sort of removal almost if you are throwing this on like an 8/8 or something that your opponent doesn't think is going to trade. But ultimately, this is just kind of a weak, middling combat trick. I don't really like this. Certainly not first pickable, and I don't know how includable it is either. Next up, we have Court Homunculus. This is a single white for a 1/1 artifact creature homunculus. And it says Court Homunculus gets +1/+1 as long as you control another artifact. This goes solidly into the blue-white affinity, blue-white artifacts deck, and is a pretty solid role player because assuming you have a bunch of artifacts, which you do if you're playing blue-white artifacts, this is a 2/2 for 1, which is totally fine by me. Not first pickable, not the reason you go into that deck, but okay otherwise. All right, so next up we have a whole bunch of rotating cards here. We have Sickle Ripper. This is a 1 and a black for a creature elemental warrior, and it has Wither. Wither says that this deals damage to creatures in the form of -1/-1 counters. So it's kind of like Infect. It has the same effect as Infect on creatures. It just doesn't do poison counters or anything like that to your opponent if it hits the face. If it hits the face, it just deals 2 damage. Seems totally fine. Seems nice and aggressive. I believe there is a black-red elemental deck. Elemental is one of the tribes that has some support in this format anyways. And a 2/1 for 2 is totally fine. I prefer 3/1s for 2 generally, but this one having Wither is pretty cool. Unfortunately, it's not really going to survive combat all that much. Wither is much better on, a 3/3, where it's going to hopefully survive combat against, X2s and X1s and things like that. But against basically anything but a powerless wall, this is going to die, so the Wither's not going to be that awesome. Now, that being said, you can throw this at a 4/4, and that 4/4 is going to be permanently a 2/2, which is totally fine as well. This just seems like a total filler card. You're not going to first pick this, but I'd probably play it in a number of black decks if I didn't have anything of higher quality. Next up, we have something. Tukatung, apparently. Tukatung Thalid. This is a single green for a 1/1 creature fungus, and it says when Tukatung Thalid dies, put a 1/1 green sapperling creature token onto the battlefield. So it's a 1/1 for 1 that replaces itself with a 1/1. So it's sort of a 2/2 for 1, but not really. It's never really a 2/2 for 1. I'd go as far as saying it's a 1.5. 1.5 for 1. Yeah, this obviously is meant to support the token strategy and to support things that want little, 1/1 tokens, but otherwise this just doesn't seem like a solid card to me. I don't think I'd be taking this very highly at all. Spinning cards everywhere. Next up we have Wrap in Flames. Wrap in Flames is a 3 and a red sorcery. Says Wrap in Flames deals 1 damage to each of up to 3 target creatures. Those creatures can't block this turn. So you can ping up to 3 target creatures. It would be awesome if that would kill a bunch, but I don't know how many X1s there are sort of kicking around in this format. We've seen one at least, and we've seen several 1/1s. So, this could have a place, especially against a token strategy, I would think. But ultimately, it is 4 mana. It is a sorcery. So you're just not going to be getting the huge value out of this that you would out of a lot of burn spells. Ultimately, I think it's probably just not that great, but it's something that you bring in from the sideboard when you see you're up against a token strategy or a sapperling strategy or something like that. Next up, we have Kite Sail. This is a 2 mana artifact equipment. Equipped creature gets +1/+0 and has flying. Equip cost of 2. I've never really liked Kite Sail. I've played in a few different formats that it's in, and it's never really been good, and I've seen players play it all the time. I just don't like it. I don't find a place for this. I don't find it's worth a card at all. If you're in the blue-white affinity sort of artifacts matter deck, maybe, but even then, there are better bad artifacts out there than this one. I just don't think you really want this in your deck, basically ever. Next up, we've got good old Evolving Wilds. We know Evolving Wilds. It's been in several formats. It's a land, you play it, you tap it, and you go and fetch a basic land of your choice. But it comes into play tapped, so it's a really weak fetch land. But totally fine. If you need this, you need it. If you don't, you don't. I would play them in 2-color decks, but I wouldn't go out of my way for it. If I was going to splash, then these become much more valuable. Not first pickable ever, but playable when you need it and just worthless when you don't. There's not much else to say about Evolving Wilds, unfortunately. All right, we're into the uncommons. We've got ourselves Artisan of Kozlak. This is a 9-mana creature Eldrazi, and it's a 10/9 for 9. It says, when you cast Artisan of Kozlak, you may return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. So straight reanimation. Plus, it's also got Annihilator too. Annihilator is, of course, when the Eldrazi attacks. Before anything happens, Annihilator triggers, and your opponent has to sacrifice 2 permanents. Lands, creatures, artifacts, enchantments, whatever they happen to be. They need to blow 2 of them up. This is a totally fine Eldrazi. The issue is if you can really go Eldrazi in this format, if you can reliably cast them, you'd probably have to be red-green ramp to pull this off. And I don't know how pull-offable it is. If it is, Artisan of Kozlak seems totally fine. 9's a little expensive. It was a little expensive even in Rise of Eldrazi. Ulamog's Crusher was kind of the flagship at 8. But yeah, it seems okay. It seems like a fun archetype to jump into and force that green ramp to happen. But it seems a little bit risky to me. So next up we have Overwhelm. This is a card that was printed in M15, actually. It has Convoke. It's a 5 green sorcery, and as I said, it has Convoke. Convoke means that you can tap any creatures you want to pay for the colorless portion of Overwhelm. So if I had 5 creatures on the battlefield untapped, I could tap all 5 of them, and Overwhelm would cost me green. You can't use it to pay for the colored mana. You can only use it to pay for the uncolored mana. But it says creatures you control get +3/+3 until end of turn. That's all right. There's a few things wrong with this card. They don't give your creatures trample. Trample is the thing you really want to have given to your creatures that are all getting a big boost. The other thing is this is a sorcery. This is not an instant, and I know I've certainly tried to play it at an instant a few times, and I've seen a lot of people try to play it against me as an instant, and it doesn't work. Yeah, be very careful with this card. It goes in a very specific deck, the green ramp, big wide board deck, probably green-white tokens, I would say. But this is just expensive, If you're going to be tapping a whole bunch of creatures to pay for this, then that's a whole bunch of creatures that aren't going to be attacking with it. It's just bad news. I look at it as a total trap, to be honest. I didn't like this in M15. I don't think I'm going to like it here. I've got to give a big pass to Overwhelm, I think. All right. Our last uncommon, I believe, is Etched Oracle. Etched Oracle is a 4-mana artifact creature wizard, and it's a 0/0, but it has Sunburst. Now, Sunburst says that this enters the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter on it for each color of mana spent to cast it. So if I used white, blue, black, red to cast this, so I had 4 different colors, this would be a 4/4. If I used white, 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 this would be a 1/1. So you need to know what deck this is going into. You need to be, multiple colors, at least 2, preferably more. This is where the bounce lands actually come in handy, because you're going to get 2 colors of mana off of the single bounce land. But it also has an ability. You can pay 1 and remove 4 +1/+1 counters from Etched Oracle. Target player draws 3 cards. So if you did in fact use 4 colors of mana to cast this, you can kill it essentially and probably draw yourself 3 cards. Ultimately, I'm just not a huge fan of this card. I think it could have a place in blue-white artifacts if you were playing some bounce lands to get more colors, but I think it's just way too much of an investment to really make this card happen. I haven't played with it, and I haven't played this format. Maybe it's actually incredibly awesome, but it feels just a bit hard to pull off for me. All right, our rare is one of the worst rares in the entire set value-wise. Thunderblust, is it? Thunderblust, yeah. 2 red for a creature elemental. It's a 7/2, so it's a 7/2 for 5. Has haste. Thunderblust has trample as long as it has a -1/-1 counter on it, and it has persist. Persist says that when the creature dies, it comes back to the battlefield with a -1/-1 counter on it. So this is a 7/2 for 5 with haste that when it dies comes back as a 6/1 with haste and trample. Just not that awesome, especially for the triple red investment. Yeah, I don't think this is that good of a card. It's so weak on the back end. The 7/2 doesn't get to trample through. I just don't think this is a good card. I can see why it's one of the worst rares to open. Yeah, I don't think I'm going to take this card. And every pack of Modern Masters has a foil, and we get a foil Fortify. Fortify is a 2 and a white instant that says, choose one. Creatures you control get +2/+0 until end of turn. Creatures you control get +0/+2 until end of turn. So either you fortify your team or you arm your team. Yeah, not that exciting of a combat trick, to be honest. You don't really ever want to be using the +0/+2 side of it, and the +2/+0 side of it just isn't that awesome, especially in your typical white deck. I don't really like this as a combat trick. I don't think combat tricks are all that good in this format, to be honest, just from what I've seen, just from what I've been looking at with it. Yeah, I mean, I'd include it if I had to, but I'd really hope that I didn't have to. So that felt like a weak pack to me. I don't know about you guys, but it felt weak to me. I think I'm looking at Artisan of Kozlak or Nameless Inversion. Nameless Inversion feels like a pretty solid removal spell to me. Artisan of Kozlak seems like a really fun, signal to go into the big rampy McRamp deck. So I think ultimately the question comes down to, am I going to have fun or am I going to try to win? If I'm having fun, I'm going with the Artisan. If I'm trying to win, I'm going with Nameless Inversion. I'm actually drafting tomorrow, and there's no prizes on the line. We're just drafting with the 3 packs that we're all buying. So tomorrow, I would pick Artisan Kozlak, I believe. Let me know what you would have picked, though. If you have had experience with this format already, definitely let me know. I'm going to be doing some videos on Magic Online when it starts up. Not too many, because they are expensive, but I'll be doing some. So I'd love to hear your input on which card you would have taken out of this pack. Would it have been the Artisan? Would it have been Nameless Inversion? Thunderblust? What would it have been? Let me know in the comments below. If you have any questions, comments, suggestions, let me know. You can find me on Twitter at The Mana Leak. That's L-E-E-K, like the vegetable, not the card. And you can also find me on Facebook at facebook.com/The Mana Leak. You've already found me here on YouTube. If you like the videos, you should click those little thumbs up icons and let the world know and let my videos keep climbing through the ranks. As well, you should subscribe to my channel. It will keep you up to date on all the latest Crack-A-Pack Tuesdays, Wacky Wednesdays, Spiky Saturdays, and any other special videos that pop up here or there. There's a subscribe button below this video and every video. And at the end of each video, in the outro, with my fun little theme song, there's a subscribe button there as well. As always, if you have any questions, comments, suggestions, let me know. Otherwise, I'll see you all next time.